So we have Susanne Jandu from lead compositor of ILM. Victor Wade, global head of training at DNEG. Dave Bannister, which you all know now. And Josh Parks, compositor from Blue Bolt. And to lead the panel, we have Chris Weatherly from The Foundry, the amazing one.
Okay, great. Well, first off, I'd like to thank everyone for turning up and coming to this event. It's always great to have people so engaged with the work we're doing and seeing people, fresh to learn. Obviously, also a big thanks to the panelists for turning up. I think I'd like to start just by letting everyone give a brief outline of what they do, their history. I'll kick things off. So my name's Chris Weatherly. I'm a product specialist at Foundry. Essentially, that kind of means that I'm an artistic voice in the company. I get to go visit clients and get their feedback. And this is really important because it means that any design work or development work we do, it's done through that artistic lens. And it also means I get to do really cool things like host panels and do talks. Now I'll kick over to Josh.
So I'm Josh Parks. I'm a compositor currently at Blue Bolt. I was recently at ILM, so working on a load of shows there at the moment. And then I also teach a load, so I go to universities and I teach online quite a lot. Some of you guys may be subscribed to my newsletter, which I kick out every month. I've got a bit better in it now. And then I also run a website called Compositing Pro, which is about taking the best bits that I find on the internet and then kind of putting them in one place. Because in my experience, people trying to learn this stuff, there's so many different ways of doing everything in Nuke that generally when you're starting out, you need like one way of doing stuff. So I'm trying to kind of just say, okay, just do this way. And then you're not going to hit Reddit where people are telling you to leave the industry. And it's kind of all the hate happens. So that's what I do.
Good. I'm Vic Wade. I'm Global Head of Training at DNEG currently. That's my current job. I've been at DNEG for about 14 years, been there quite a long time. And I started out as an artist, as a roto prep artist at CFC at the time. And then moved through into compositing roles, lead roles, supervision, VFX supervision, and head of department for the comp team at DNEG. I also went out to Vancouver to help set up the studio there a few years back. And then when I came back to London, I moved into the current role overseeing training across all of our sites and all of our disciplines.
Great.
My name is Suzanne Jandu. I'm a lead compositor at ILM. I have worked at MPC as a lead compositor, as a 2D soup. I joined ILM last year, and soon I will be moving on to Framestore as head of 2D. And everything not film. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
I hope that you know who I am. But day to day, I kind of oversee a team of 2D suits and 2D department. I sometimes 2D supervise shows. Sometimes I get to lead or supervise shows, VFX supervise shows. So if I'm very lucky and been good. Also like to develop people. You might know that developing my artists is a big part of what I like to do. And sometimes I have to be tech support when something goes wrong.
Well, as you can see, we've brought along a range of experience here for the panel. And I think the best thing to do is, obviously everyone's looking to develop and progress from a mid to a senior and a lead. So I guess we should really start by creating a ground plane of defining what a senior and a lead are. So in your experiences, what is a lead and a senior, and what does that look like in your respective companies? So I guess, Josh, we'll start with you.
So Blue Bolt's a fairly small company.
Yeah.
So lead and senior kind of crosses over, so we kind of bounce between. So a few weeks ago I was on a project where I kind of had to jump into a more lead role. And then at the moment now I've just jumped straight back into a more senior role. So I think in the bigger companies it's more defined. In the smaller companies it's more you've got to take on what's needed. And I think the thinking slightly changes, as Dave was saying. You're kind of thinking in terms of systems of maybe you want to template your own stuff. As you're a senior, you've got that kind of eye and you've got that experience, so you're templating your own stuff. And as a lead, you're trying to template it for everybody. So if something makes sense to you, that's fine as a senior. But as a lead, you need to be aware of your team and what will make sense to them. So yeah, that's what we do in Blue Bolt.
What's it like at ILM, Susan?
I would say seniors have a big responsibility because we have very big shots. So they spend a lot of time making things just look good. And they sit at their desks, work very, very hard. They have a very good skill set, technically, artistically. And then moving into a lead role, leads generally, just like Dave was saying, they have to spend a lot of time getting to know the artists, bidding, understanding what shots are like. I spend a lot of my time on the floor, and I don't spend a lot of time at my desk. I have to help artists make shots look better, help with technical issues, even just taking people to the pub when they're tired, or that's me. That's what I do. I try to make people happy. I'm known for that. Yeah.
So I think we found our role model there.
Yeah. I would say leading at ILM has been a really big challenge for me because when I started there a year ago, I didn't know a lot of the artists there. So I felt like there was some time it took for the artists to trust me. And I think I'm the only lead female woman at ILM currently, compositing. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I hope it didn't, but there was that as well. So yeah, getting to know the team was probably my biggest challenge because, you know, I had a responsibility of making Ready Player One, which was the job that I joined working on, Steven Spielberg's. Did you guys see it? Yeah. Ready Player One, yeah, good movie. So it was really scary, you know, like you're in dailies with Steven Spielberg, you know, on a screen, and you're so excited and happy, and your dreams are all coming true.
Also, he's on his like yacht somewhere as well. It's like, oh man, you're like Skyping in from this yacht.
And because you're so I'm so passionate about my job, like I just want to make, you know, you want to do the best job you can do, and you want to take all this feedback that you're getting, and like you say, you know, transferring information, which is subjective, right? Like Steven Spielberg might go, I like this, make it a little bit bluer, or I like this explosion, make it a bit bigger, but everybody visualizes it differently. So the VFX soup visualizes it differently, we visualize it, and so, you know, it's like everybody has to work together to make this creative visual thing like work. And to me, it's amazing. It's amazing to see how all this information, all these bits and pieces come together, and we make these beautiful films. I think that's a really hard job to communicate back to the artist what is being communicated to you. So that was a challenge, especially because we had such hard shots to do.
Yeah, it sounds very much like you have to be a conduit for the rest of the team. I guess speaking to both Victor and Dave, because you're both from DNEG, would you have a similar answer? I'd be interested actually to know if there's a difference between a senior and a lead on the film side compared to the 2D side.
Yeah, I think there probably is a little bit of a difference. I think very much, you know, the same as what you've heard. The senior artist is somebody who's an expert, is very capable, very skilled. And you move to leadership, and again, as you've heard, it's much more about collaboration, working with a team, working with others, and taking a bit more responsibility for that. So the communication aspect becomes really, really important. Having said that, I think the senior artist role isn't just about being incredible at your job. You heard a little bit, I think, from Dave earlier in his talk about how we expect artists sharing a room together to support each other, and that's very much an expectation of a senior artist at DNEG for sure. We don't just want you to sit headphones on and knock out these sort of colossal challenging shots. It is about supporting the team a little bit as well, and of course that's quite a nice lead-in for anybody who does excuse me, who does want to progress into leadership roles, and it allows you to sort of spot those people a little bit when you put that expectation of a senior artist. I think I mean, you can talk a little bit about TV, but I guess that, you know, there's quite a lot of opportunity in TV to progress.
Yeah, I think there's more opportunity in TV to progress. We kind of, our show turnaround tends to be a lot quicker. We've got loads of shows going on at once, and you know the cycle is a lot quicker. So and also you have to kind of stand up. You know, it's like working at a small company. You have to turn your hand to anything. You know, we kind of feel like the ethos is nobody's too senior to have to do roto. Nobody's too senior to do prep. Although I haven't done prep for a while. I haven't done any shots for a while.
You're too senior.
I'm too senior to do. But the idea is we all have to just pitch in and whatever your level. So kind of the lines are kind of smeared between the different levels. But you know, the artist managers know what the levels are, and it's kind of, I guess it's kind of demarcated by what skills you have and what you have been able to achieve in terms of the shots you've been given. I suppose that's what it looks like. That's how you define it, and how you travel between the different levels is by all the things I talked about, and by kind of just demonstrating that you understand things. You know, you spend your mid time when you're mid, you do spend it learning buttons and approaches and tools and techniques. It's like karate, you know, you learn your techniques when you're up to black belt, and then after black belt you really learn what karate is. Anyone? No. So, but when you kind of learn, you have to learn everything till you get up to mid, and then when you get to senior, you realise it's more important that your eyes are important, and you know, what you're looking at, and you've got the approaches for your shot. You kind of go down fewer blind alleys. You know the surest way to get to where you need to get to, but your eye and your creative approach is a bit different and has matured. So I think that answer the question.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say I think it's a really important point about TV giving you an opportunity to progress quickly. It's something that we always look for on a CV. I think even if you're really wed to the idea of being a high-end feature film compositor, you should definitely be open to opportunities in high-end TV. The work that's happening now is on a par with nearly all of the feature film visual effects work that we're doing. It's so high-end, so complex.
The difference is we have to come to our solution quicker. In film, you get the chance to try out a few solutions.
Yeah.
We have to try and get to that solution.
So there's that acceleration.
But in terms of quality of the work, the stuff we did on AC, some of the film guys that came to work with us, they struggled with our QC procedures. They thought it was going to be easy. It was not easy, because the Netflix are a difficult client to please.
And they have to do everything at 4K.
You have to do everything in 4K.
We don't in film.
And or above. And so we don't call it, it's not TV programs anymore. They like to call them episodic features. That's what the clients call it. I don't know.
Just quickly as well, touching on the whole senior thing. In my experience, I think, again, especially in smaller companies and DNEG TV, you have to kind of just get the shot out. So what I've seen is mid-level and juniors are more likely to just kind of hammer on and just start the shot, whereas a senior guy may go away and just find out what other shots might have been similar that have already done before, and just grab bits that already work. So I think that's a huge thing I've seen that seniors do. And I don't know if it's kind of like an ego thing of like, okay, I know how to do it, so I just want to get to my final image quicker. But I think that's a huge thing you can do as a mid-level and a junior, is just ask, are there any shots that have already hit the brief that the director's asking for? If so, go into those scripts, find, are there any grade nodes you can nick? Is your green screen very similar? Just grab up as much as you can and kind of like collage up your nuke script and then work into it. I think that's a big thing that I'm seeing in regards to like senior to mids and junior levels. It's kind of having the ability to just take whatever you need to get the job done, and not having this kind of like, I've got to make everything from scratch.
That's a really good point. And I'll just talking about what seniors like to do. I've seen some of my 2D soups, and they spend a lot of time looking at their elements and a lot of time looking at their shots. You don't get in there and say, well, I've got to bash this in here, I've got to bash that in there, and then not looking at the shot. You're trying to create a composition. You're not just bashing elements into a shot. So they spend a lot of time thinking about looking where the light is and analysing what the colour of the shadows are. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? They spend a lot more time looking at their shots and they probably spend a lot more time doing the shot. They spend a lot of time looking at the shot. Yeah. Sorry, Suzanne, you wanted to say something?
I think it's really important for people to ask questions, and I don't think people ask enough questions, and that's something that I've noticed being a lead, that I ask a lot of questions, and I'm not afraid to say anymore that I'm scared of not knowing something. So, I have 2 kids, and I was off on maternity leave for quite a few years, And then I came back and I went from Shake to Nuke. And there was a period where I was learning Nuke. I went away, had my kids, came back, and I felt like I didn't know anything. And I was supposed to be leading again on Nuke, and I barely knew it. So I had to ask the juniors that I was working with how to do stuff, and I still do that now because there's so much information. There is so much information, like you will never, ever, ever know everything. You just can't, it's impossible. And everybody does things a different way. So I might do something one way, like for the last 10 years, and then tomorrow I might find out, oh, there's a better way to do it, or somebody else has an entirely different way to do something, or you might, do a tutorial on YouTube or whatever. I just think it's so, so important to ask, and don't worry about sounding stupid. I always say that to people that I work with. I'm just like, ask me as many stupid questions as you want, because we're artists and we're so insecure. Like, we really, really are. And I just think, if you can just throw that away and just kind of be real and let people know you're scared, it's okay. It's totally fine.
Yeah, I'll definitely echo that. I know you mentioned that as well in your talk, Dave. Some of the best supervisors who I've worked with have asked what you might consider stupid questions about the work. They're just very open. They want to get opinions. They want to get input on it. So right up to those very senior levels, asking questions, asking for input is really, really important.
Yeah, no, great. I think something that's been really important so far in the discussions, and especially with the presentation given, is how an artist obviously develops beyond a mid. I think a lot of mid artists, they've got their workflows on lock to a certain point. They know how to handle shots and they get to a certain point. How would you recommend they progress if they're saying, well, I don't really know where I go from here? What other main points should they be looking at? Is it just looking to help others, or?
It's doing harder shots.
Doing harder shots.
I think it's hard. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think it's, in my experience, certainly it's hard to get to that point of feeling like you really know how to do everything, because it's a very rapidly changing industry, and there's lots of opportunity to do different types of work as well. So I'd say be looking out for different types of work, different projects, different shows, different approaches. I think,
and also you should ask for challenging work.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think a lot of people also, I'm always surprised that while we're scheduling, people don't go, oh, I've watched the edit and I really like the shot. People don't.
Yeah, I never got that.
Yeah.
I never got that. Senior guys would be annoyed at me as a mid because I'd asked for a shot they wanted and
Yeah.
I'd get it.
I
And
always
they'd go,
thought it
oh,
was-
that's really unfair.
Yeah.
I just asked for it. And obviously I'm probably going to work for free for it or overtime because I really want to do the shot. So it's
That's
a
the thing, because
no-brainer.
you need to love what you're working on. If you're staring at something that's 30 frames and you're looking at it for 2 months, you need to love it, basically. And
It sounds so sad.
no, you just want to be inspired and make something look cool, right? So if you're looking at something that you hate and you're like, oh man, I wish they hadn't given me that shot, just say, I don't want the shot, give me another one. And you won't sound. I guess you have to gauge with your lead and your team and how many shots there are. If there's only one shot, you can't say you don't want it. But if you've been given 10 shots and there's one that you particularly don't like, I always think it's good to say and to ask. Josh has always been.
Well, leads love it as well because then they go, if you do all of your shots, then we'll give you the good shot. So they so it's then you've got to get all yours done.
Motivation.
Exactly.
We like to just try and make sure everyone's got a range of shots. So there are shots that nobody wants to do, but they have to get done nevertheless. And so you can have a couple of crap shots and then we'll give you a lovely shot, a big shot, and that's all on your plate. How you deal with that is up to you. And making sure everybody's got that. That's what we like to do.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't. I kind of feel like if that's your mindset, you're kind of limiting yourself. I think if you feel like you've done as much as you can and you know everything there is to know.
You don't. If you feel like you know everything there is to know, you don't, because like Suzanne says, you don't.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of need to be honest with yourself and look at yourself and say, so what is it I don't know? Where could I be better? Because we can all improve. And it could be aspects that are not comp-based. They could be like personality-based. You can work on how you interact with people. There's always something you can improve on yourself. And that goes for everybody in the world.
Yeah.
So
I think
if-
there's a few, just quickly as well. So like, there's a few things that generally what will happen is you're like an expert at one thing for one project. Like Ready Player One, you get really good at denoising renders, and then you go on to another project, and then you're doing something else. So what you want to do is just kind of like debrief yourself, right? Give yourself a load of notes at the end of a project that kind of aim to teach you next time you're in that situation in the future. That'd be my first thing. And then second thing is, if you're a mid-level thinking that, like look at the senior guys. What are they doing? Go into their Nuke scripts. I used to go into Nuke scripts like half an hour a day, 15 minutes a day. Look at what they're doing. Write down attributes of what they're doing that are different to yours. And then you've got actionable points. Go into all of their Nuke scripts, find their coolest shots, see how they've done them, bits that don't make sense. I've got a thing where I tool set all of the stuff that doesn't make sense. And then whenever I get some free time, bring it into my comp, work out what's going on, and make notes. Again, I've got all these notes. I look a bit like a crazy person. I took them to a uni once, and it's kind of like, here's all my notes that I've got, like hand-drawn node graphs and all sorts. But I think that's incredible. It's not like you're not having to make this up. Like, everyone has these problems. So all you've got to do is look at the people who are in the position you want to be in and work out what they're doing. So, and then you can work it backwards rather than having to guess it and make it up as you go along. Just open up their scripts, work out what they're doing, and also work out, if you've got any great leads, work out what they're doing, work out what good seniors are doing. Just write all their attributes down and try and practice one a day or something.
Do you ask them before you go into their script?
No, make sure you import their script into Nuke as well. Don't open it. I've told someone that once before.
That's going to have the opposite effect.
Import in.
But I'd say not just ask them if you can go through their script. Ask them to explain it to you.
But yeah, exactly.
Our tech check, we have tech checkers, which is our first layer in our department. They have to go through and do all the tech checking, which has worked out very nicely for us. But I always encourage them, it needs to be a learning opportunity. So if you see something that's cool, then you should be able to go and ask somebody, so how did you do that? So how did you come up with this? You learn by talking to each other and sharing it. And everybody who's senior has been helped by somebody else in their past. We've all got people who have been inspirational and helped us and taught us things. Now it's your turn to give back.
I mean, that's something that we do. We sit together and we constantly ask each other questions. It's not something that we are ashamed of. Like, we constantly help each other, and then you become mates and friends, and it becomes like a nice working atmosphere. Like you said. You were saying earlier, don't always sit with your headphones. We do work with our headphones, but we do have time where it's off, and we can share knowledge with each other.
If you've got a big roto shot to do or a big prep shot, then you need your headphones to get into the zone.
Yeah.
Apart from that, just take them off and talk to people. Maybe have some music going on in the room.
But that's how you get mentors as well. Like, I've had like impromptu mentors where I've gone over and I'm mates with them and just said, hey, look, you've done this really cool thing in the script. Could you just talk me through it? And then it's kind of, you built this kind of like different relationship with them where you're not just bugging them for stuff. You've got a reason, and then they kind of take you under their wing a bit. I've had some awesome, I mean, I think you're definitely one of them on like Jungle Book. You really helped me out with a load of stuff. So, and it was just like, oh, hey, I don't know how to do this like fiery bit here. Could you help me out? And it's, again, I think the thing is, it's just like, there's no egos at that point. You just got to go ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very traditional way of learning in visual effects. That's how everybody learned in the early days, because there wasn't any sort of tutorials or websites or anything like that. You had to figure it out as you went along, and it was very much from peer-to-peer, watching somebody do their work and talking to them about their process.
Cool. Have you seen any potential mistakes that maybe some artists you really felt could develop have made, and what things might you think hindered development for an artist looking to progress?
I think when someone gets feedback and they clearly don't agree with it and they just keep making the shot look the way they want it to look, that has always been a huge one. That's a tough one that I think everyone has to learn in Synastry.
You've got to care about it, but you still need to hit the notes.
You have to recognise it's not yours. You're only borrowing it, and you have to give it back at the end of the day. And that goes for dailies. You shouldn't ask for your opinion, but I don't want an argument.
Yeah.
That's very politically put.
It very much seems like you've said it's about taking the ego out of it, and through taking the ego out of it, you get more collaboration, more better output.
But if you enjoy the process, then there's never going to be an ego attached to it, because you just like doing you like comping on cool shots. It's like that's literally it. If you enjoy the process of doing the stuff, then it doesn't really matter if you change as much as you want. I mean, it's just kept you employed for another few days because they kept changing the shot. So it's kind of enjoy the process rather than being like, I just want to get to the final thing.
I think one. Sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think one of the really common mistakes, if you want to think of it that way, that you see when people step up into lead roles and even supervisor roles, is exactly what Dave was talking about. They struggle to let go of the sort of shot workload a little bit. It's really, really common. I did it when I moved up. I think it's almost impossible to take that step. And again, as you heard, it is a very different sort of set of skills.
Yeah, to go through it.
Without sort of realising at some point, I can't do this. It's too much work. I've
Do you have
got
one
to let go.
painful show then, and then it's fine after that? Or
Yeah,
how's it work?
well, if you just have one painful show, you're doing quite well. But it's kind of an incremental thing, I think. But yeah, at some point you have that sort of realisation that actually it's about supporting the team, about you as a lead supporting the team to get the volume of work out. And it's not about you sort of trying to do all the shots yourself and allocating shots to the team outside of that. It's about giving them the opportunity to work on these big shots. And I think it is a big change. I think one of the things, again, Dave, that you said, seeing somebody who you're not quite sure is able to handle a big shot, but you kind of don't have a choice, or you take that leap and give them that shot and that responsibility, and you put your faith and trust in them, and you kind of feel a little bit like, oh my God, I'm not sure how this is going to go, and it is still your responsibility as the lead or the soup. When you see that artist produce a result, it might not be the result that you would have come up with yourself. It might be a little bit different, a little bit surprising. That is equally as good a feeling as getting the final in dailies yourself, if not better, to see that presented to the supervisor, and you're like, yeah, they've done it, and now you've got somebody on your team who can take on that more complex, more challenging work. So you've really helped yourself, and you've helped the whole team to do that. So I think that is definitely a really common mistake, and something, I don't know whether you can avoid it. I guess be conscious of it as much as you can.
Is it something you can practice at all? Because you can't really practice that as a senior guy,
Let-
can you?
let it go.
Just here's all my shots as a senior guy, just giving your shots to everyone else.
I don't
Go
know.
and
you
cry,
can't
and
really-
they go and cry in the toilet.
Not with this mic on.
I think it's almost a coming to terms thing,
Yeah,
like an
yeah.
acceptance. You've got to do
Well,
that.
it definitely feels like part of the progression of an artist does involve stepping away from the art to a certain extent and embracing more of a managerial skill set. You're having to manage teams, manage time, manage the structures that you're putting down. This is obviously something you've all experienced, but a lot of artists aren't that way. That's not the skill set they grew up with. So what advice would you give to someone who's moving into that? And was there any useful resources you used or tips you got?
It's a good question. I've written a whole course about this. It's quite a lot.
Get comfortable, everybody.
Yeah. I think, a big part of what we cover in sort of the opening session is about drawing from your own experiences, really. So everybody who's in that position has been led, has been supervised by somebody. Some of those experiences will be amazing and inspirational, and you'll feel like you've really grown. And some of them will be awful and punishing. Hopefully not too many, but you do still have those bad leads and bad supervisors. Look a little bit at what those experiences were and think about why they led to that result, why they made you feel the way that they did, and learn from those, draw from those experiences. If something was really successful, something worked for you, try and do that yourself, and avoid the stuff that didn't work and made you feel like you weren't being supported. I think that's probably the best way to develop your leadership style. It's the way It's the way I learned. Again, nobody put me through a training course, and even now they're still quite rare to get the opportunity to do formal training in leadership. So definitely look at your experiences and draw from your experiences.
Great. Have there been any aspects to of any roles you've had since developing beyond a mid that have kind of caught you off guard, or like something that you look at and you're like, oh, I wish I had known more about this at a junior level or a younger level?
Everything. Don't know. Do you want to?
Like photography is
Yeah.
always a big one that I always
Yeah.
underestimate. I was like, oh crap, I should probably go out with a camera more and like really understand each lens and what it's, because there's some awesome, like John Galloway at ILM. He's so on it. Like this is a VFX super ILM, and he just understands it so well, and he just knows the attributes that would come with a certain and it's just amazing. So that's always the one that I feel like I should do this.
Well, it's like, speaking of chipping away to reveal like the actual realities of the image, like knowing how the camera works is essentially the basis of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's massively your friend, because if they were to get rid of all these camera artifacts, then if you didn't have any chromatic aberrations,
They are trying to do that.
But most of them you match in plate. That was the interesting thing about Ready Player One. It was kind of like, well, we can invent whatever camera we want, so what would we expect from a camera? And that was always definitely something that I kind of underestimated.
Yeah. But go back to what you said, actually, where I've been on set, I've seen so many old vintage anamorphic cameras that are coming back into use.
Yeah.
There was one on Monday, and they only had it for the day, and then had to go off because it was going to another show. That's all they could have with it. It's kind of there's only 2 of them, and they're being used every single day.
Wow.
Everybody wants to shoot on anamorphic suddenly. Doctor Who's been shot on anamorphic.
Yeah.
Everything's
That's right.
been
I
shot on
think
anamorphic.
I think the image that the camera, the sort of modern digital cameras are producing is so technically accurate that you need the old vintage glass, the lenses to actually
make it cinematic.
make it look photographic. Yeah,
It's part of the visual language of film is those artifacts and the things that an anamorphic lens gives you, like breathing, or they can have that on any lens. That changing of the focal length or the depth of field. All those things are part of that visual language we've all grown up with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Also, now it all justifies all of J.J. Abrams' lens flares as well, which is always good. So,
I think you kind of touched on something else that I've also been interested in kind of seeing is, you mentioned coming from a completely really different background to visual effects, and I think there's so many paths into VFX. You see so many people who've come from such diverse backgrounds, but that can often mean that people skip the fundamentals of art when coming into it. So I think that's a really important aspect, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you develop into a senior lead, it only becomes more important. So for someone who's looking to progress but doesn't have that fundamental knowledge, what's a good way for them to start picking that up and learning?
Visits in museums.
There's a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
A lot of different ways. Like, like you say, everybody comes from a different background. I have an art history degree, and I studied visual art, so I was painting and drawing. But my passion started with animation, traditional animation, and then I moved into 3D animation. And then you'll meet somebody who you sit next to who's like studied biology. Everybody comes, or architecture, and I think, because when we started, the industry was so new, there wasn't any school, right? Barely, there was, and if there was, it was very hard to get into. The class that I took cost $10,000 just for a 6-week course. Like, it was insane. I think that
I think you benefit from that diversity.
you benefit from the diversity, and the ways in which you can improve your skill set, I would say, is watch films. That's probably number 1, because stay current with films. Like, be inspired. Take a photography class, or just pick up your camera and start, shooting your friends. Not shooting your friends, but you know what I mean. Don't shoot your friends.
That's a very fake answer.
that's how you get your in position right there.
Shoot your friends.
I think also a really good thing to do is probably make a short film. I make short films with my kids, and that really helps, just setting up angles, and you can do stop motion. There's so many different ways to improve your skill set if your background isn't traditional.
I definitely think there's a great value in bringing knowledge and expertise from other mediums and bring it into the visual effects landscape. And that doesn't have to be necessarily in the shot. I think for you, starting your blog was actually inspired by another person.
Oh yeah, I've nicked loads of ideas off people.
Yeah, but it's that creative borrowing that, you
exactly.
weren't even looking at someone in the visual effects landscape, you were looking outside of that.
But I'm always surprised about how little of that happens in like managerial roles. Like, most companies, every show's running the same way.
What?
I just find, but you know what I mean. But there's like everything, like there's no ideas we steal from other industries necessarily. in regards to that, how we tackle those kind of problems. I always find that interesting how everyone in the senior position has only ever been in visual effects. That's always an interesting thing to me. It'd be very interesting to have someone coming from a different industry and see how they would tackle that exact same problem. That's always something I've wanted to see.
Yeah,
Is
it is starting to
But
change. That is starting to change.
Because management actually is there's a talent for management. You know, not everybody can be a manager, but do you necessarily need to have been an artist to manage artists?
Yeah.
I think you probably would struggle to have a little bit of the empathy for what the artist is going through.
For sure.
But I mean, I came from an electronic engineering degree, and so there was no art there. And so I've learned it all the way along. You know, I was self-taught man and boy. You know, but you just have to be like autodidactic about it and just go on and read books and go to art galleries and just go everywhere and learn everything you can and watch a load of movies and analyse them, look at them and say, what is that a good film and why is that a crap film?
Yeah, it's really important to watch bad movies as well as good movies. You learn more from them.
Sharknado.
Yeah, and why is it a bad movie?
I mean, that's a good film. That's a good film.
I mean, I think
I find really annoying is like you can't go frame by frame on. Well, I can't on Netflix. Or like
Suzanne.
I constantly go forward and backward. Like I still do that. It's like, how did they do that? You know.
it's like the old days.
It is.
Projection.
We were talking about that. Filing things on film. You used to shoot things out of film, and then you could watch it. There's no A-Bing with the plate. There's none of that stuff. You watch it twice. Final.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I miss those days.
So something that I see at the moment a lot is like part of what I do with my role is I try to keep appraised of a lot of information online, whether it be forums, blog posts, threads, and the topic of passion comes up quite a lot. So I was just kind of interested to know, I mean, what are your thoughts of passion in the industry at the moment in general, and also how is your passion for your job and the industry like developed throughout your career? And I'll kick that one to Josh first.
So
in the hot seat.
obviously your passion is going to like wave in and out of loving it and then not liking it and then loving it depending on like projects, who you're working with, all sorts of stuff. But the way I like to look at it like momentum. So I always try and just shift the momentum into something else, which is probably why I do all this side stuff. Because if work's kind of low down a little bit, then I'll throw all of my momentum into something else, like the newsletter or maybe my website. I'll write a load of stuff on that I want to see, or a course, or some of my teaching stuff. So I kind of like to keep the momentum up, but then the passion for all of these will kind of change and develop basically. And I think that's important to be able to shift the different stuff. I mean, I guess it's the same with shots. If you've got like 4 shots and you love one, you'll work on that one. You're like, okay, I could run out of ideas for that one. Okay, I'll work on that one now. I love that one. And I mean, I'm a bit pain in the ass to schedule like that in production. Blue Bottle found that a bit weird because I really just like to jump between. So I think your passion will go up and down, but try and keep the momentum up. It's when your momentum drops, that's when you see that people just end up just knowing like the same way. They'll just do a key exactly the same way because their passion's just gone. They just want to get the shot done, all that stuff. So try and keep the momentum high. Like try and set yourself up. 15 minutes, I'll open up people's scripts. 10 minutes, I'll do a quick keying test or whatever. I'll do some of that stuff. I want to try something out. Just keep that momentum up and be aware of that because it'll affect your work if you're not as passionate about it. So
that's actually something I really enjoyed about Dave's presentation is how much you invest in knowing your team and knowing, you know, the ins and outs of how they progress, how they learn, how they develop, and being invested in that. And I think obviously that will contribute to the passion of the artist as well. So it seems like having, like, if you're looking to develop into a senior or lead position, being aware of that and being aware of the artists around you for that.
I think you've also got to, excuse me, having a coughing fit. I think you've also got to know yourself. I think one of the other, talking about common mistakes, one of the other things that you see commonly is burnout. People really pushing themselves. That's a really good way to quickly lose your taste for what you're doing. So you've got to, it's another lesson I vividly remember learning, you know, pulling all-nighters and working very long hours for a long period of time and just finding that I wasn't actually enjoying the work that I was doing because of that. And I do love visual effects and I do love what I do and I want to keep loving it for as long as I can. And it made me realise that I had to take a bit of personal responsibility myself to control the hours that I was working and limit what I was doing in order to keep that passion for what I was doing. So, you know, that's hard. You know, we work in a high pressure industry. It is project based. We do have clients, tight schedules, expectations getting higher and higher. But you can do there is an element, if you're working in a company that's supportive, you can control yourself how much work you do in the hours that you're expected to work. So I think that's definitely an important part of that question about keeping motivated. And
Yeah, no,
keeping
really well
passionate.
said.
Yeah, that work-life balance is really, really important, because you need to have other things going on in your life. You know, something else you're passionate about. I think that's important. And you know, we've been through that time when you're doing 14, 15 hours a day, and at that point you're just existing. You just work and sleep and work and sleep.
And you're not doing good work.
You're not
Usually
doing
you're not
good
doing
work.
good work.
I mean, worse than usual. In my case, work. But you're not. I don't think you get anywhere. You're not gaining anything by it. And it just sucks all the joy out of life.
So the amount of times I've been stuck on something, and you go home and wake up the next day and you solve it in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You dreamt
It's
about
mad.
something, and you
Yeah.
think, oh yeah, I could do that, brilliant. And then you're passionate again. You can't wait to get back into work and fix
Exactly.
the job. Yes.
When
Get
you
out.
come back in and look at what you spent all night working on, and you're like, Jesus,
Yeah.
what on earth was
What
I
have I
thinking? Sleep deprived.
Why is it
Magnet
going
over
to
your
spiral?
computer so it can't
Yeah.
be seen.
There's also a thing artists can do. Like I remember doing this. You know, when you join a new company or you're fresh out of school or whatever, and you've been given a task and you can't do it, and you're sitting there going like, "Fuck, I'm so rubbish. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this." Well, like that is just the worst way to handle working on a shot. And a lot of people do that. And like I know this from talking to my colleagues over the years, you know, in the pub. And when that happens to you, you really have to take a step back. And you have to remember, like you were saying, your passion. Why do you love working in film? And then take a rest. And like I've gone for walks if that happens to me. Or you know, just say like, I can't do the shot. I really don't want to do it. It's stressing me out. You will get really, really tired. And when you're really, really tired and you're feeling like you can't do it, I think getting some sleep and some rest is really, really important.
You can solve stuff really quickly. Suddenly,
Exactly.
When you're not exhausted.
You'll just go for some fresh air and boom, you'll have the
And
answer.
I think we're in such a detail-oriented industry as well. You can start to have a really narrow focus on something that's actually probably quite trivial in the shot, and actually progressing to leadership is all about broadening your kind of context and understanding of what's going on around it. So if you're really pushing yourself and you're tired, you lose all of that perspective, and you can end up spending hours on something that doesn't matter at all. It's more about kind of
I'm
taking a little
afraid
bit
I'm
of
going to
a
have
step back.
to cut off on that question, because there's one question I like to end on because we're reaching time, and that's seeing as you have this platform and you're all extremely talented people and like wealth of experience, I always like to find out, is there anything you've always wanted to voice to the industry in general that you don't feel enough people are aware of? Is there any one thing you've always thought, why don't people know more about this or know this?
Well, let me get out my piece of paper if no one else has got anything to say. Well, I wrote down a few things.
It's a manifesto.
Remember, this is quick, this last question.
So, no. So at the end of each project, try and go for a coffee with your lead and ask them for feedback. They're probably not going to give you honest feedback, 'cause they're not going to be mean to you. So the best way to get around this is ask them who they thought was the best, like, comper or whoever on your team. And then you can kind of, again, look at their attributes of what was that person doing and really learn from that. I found that really important. Number one, because it shows you've taken the initiative to actually sit down with them and ask for feedback. And it'll mean you get better as an artist. And also, there's all sorts of lives you can live within the VFX industry. Up here, we're talking about how to kind of go from a CG to a lead. But some of your goals may be like, I just want to work 6 months of the year and then go skiing for 6 months of the year. Or all of this stuff. Like, there's so many lives you can live in this industry. So try and work out. Now, again, I'm trying to figure this out as well. I don't know what kind of life I want yet. But try and figure this out before you kind of end up in a position where you maybe aren't happy with, and you've kind of gone so far in this direction that you feel like you can't go off into and live the life you want. So that's something I think is really important, actually work out what you want to do. Like some companies you can work remotely, you could teach online, you could go teach at universities, all sorts of stuff in this industry you can do. Don't just think that you've got to go to the big companies and that's all there is. Like you can work. I used to work with a guy who worked freelance for like 2 months, worked on one cool film that he wanted to work on, and then he went and spent time with his family. That's awesome. And these people don't have you don't hear about them much because they're just living the dream. So yeah, definitely bear in mind that that's one thing to be aware of. Like, actually work out what life you want for yourself within this industry, because there's so much stuff you can do. You can work it around you.
Any other?
I'd like to agree with that, and I'd also like to say that I don't think leading is for everybody. You know, like sometimes I think to myself, like, why am I doing this exactly? Like, it's stressful and it's tiring, but I know the answer of why I'm doing it. But one of the things that I miss a lot is just sitting and working with my earphones on. I really miss that. I miss the art of just sitting there and working and comping. We do get benefits like look deving, like you said, which I love doing, but you have to ask yourself, do you really want to lead? I think it's a really, really important question, because if you go to WETA, or if you go to ILM, or any of these big places, you will see that half of the people there have been leads, and have been soups, and have been visual effects supervisors, and now they just want to comp. And you can go backwards and forwards. Like, I didn't actually know that until I went to WETA. And I could see that. I could see all these amazing guys, and they were amazing at their jobs, but they were just taking a break. So, you know, they were like a 2D soup somewhere, and they were tired, and they're like, I'm just gonna be a compositor for a while. And
It's nice to be able to dip in and
you
out,
can
keep
do
the
that. You
passion
can go
up.
forward and backward. Try it out. If you don't like it, just be a compositor again. You can do that.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
Go on, let me
if
say
you
this.
have one
So
thing-
I think you need to make sure you're enjoying all the people in your workplace. That comes across wrong. You should enjoy the company of the people that you're working with, like all the people in all the other disciplines. Get to know them, get to learn a bit more about what they do. Make sure you go down to the pub as much as you can. I used to do that a lot when I was at CineSite. I used to go to the George, and I made so many great friends, had so many great times. Make sure you're doing that, but then you need a plan to get out. My plan to get out is I'm going to go and do extras work. I went on set for Will, and there was a guy who I think he shot Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. He was the DOP who shot the original Blade Runner, and he was there on set, and everyone was worshipping him because he's massively brilliant DOP, and he was just being somebody who was an extra, supporting artist. That's what we say now. But that's my retirement plan. Need a retirement plan.
So just to summarise, the key to success is to like people, or get people.
It's to enjoy. You've got to enjoy what you're doing.
And spend as much down the pub as you can, I think he said.
I don't go. I hardly ever go to. I don't even go to pizza and beer very much anymore. But I did. I used to. It's important to get to know and just enjoy everyone's company, because there's some awesome people in this industry, and we're doing a brilliant job. And what is there better to do than to make pretty pictures and great art, and people go and see it and people don't go and see it, and what's better than that, what's better than doing what we do?
I think that's a great sentiment to end on. So thank you all so much for your input and all this great information, and cheers.
Thank you.
So we are a bit short on time, so we're going to do a small Q&A, and then we're going to the pub where you can keep asking things. So, so we have 3 questions. So, anyone? Or is everyone going to want to go to the pub? Really? Do you have great people in front of you?
red shirt. Look at him. He's pointing to the sky.
Sorry. Just, because it is moving, it changes.
This is a question, I guess, for Suzanne, because I think the others have done it as well, but you obviously took a long time out, because maternity is about 9 months, and people maybe take it out for some other reason as well. And with something like VFX, it changes so much and so fast. What did you do to get back into it?
After I left, what did I do to get back into it? I was employed by MPC, and I asked them if I could come back, and they said yes. It was very difficult.
So how did you catch up with all the technological changes?
All the changes. Okay, all right, sorry. I misunderstood the question. So you're like, how did I go?
Yeah.
Well, I had Nuke at home, so...
We all know what that means.
Downloaded the...
Non-commercial.
What is it?
Non-commercial.
yeah, 2-week free trial.
Lasted 6 years.
So I did some practicing at home. Just did some tutorials online. Asked some friends when I got to work how to do stuff. I asked a lot of questions, really. Like you usually get sat next to a mentor. In my case, I didn't have a mentor, but I had people around me who I knew, because obviously I had worked at NPC before. So I just, send them a message, and asking a lot of questions, I think, is my strength.
Is there any other questions? Well, I know it's sometimes difficult to think of it while you're here, so we're definitely in the pub, so there's questions there. But there is something that I'm quite interested to know is, are there any questions that when you do these kind of things that you wish people would ask you, or things where you're like, why is this, why are not more people asking about this thing that is very important to my day-to-day?
I mean, for me, I do always wonder why people, it seems like everyone just wants to go in exactly the same direction, which is why I like mentioning about all these people that live in very different lives. Because you can do, this is one of the rare industries you can do that. Like if you want to go to a country with tax subsidies, then you can very easily. So, and I think that the benefits of that aren't brought up enough.
I mean, it's a good point. That can be an opportunity to progress into leadership if, if there's a site or a location that's growing rapidly, that creates opportunity. So we've seen that in sort of the last 5 or 10 years, I guess, in places like Vancouver and Montreal and
Mumbai as well.
Yeah, Indian locations. Excuse me. That does create opportunities for these roles, and I would say if that's something you're open to and you're in a position to be able to do that, don't shut yourself off to it, because it can be an incredible experience and a way to get a bit more responsibility.
Great.
I actually have a question. Sorry.
Please.
So it's quite interesting what you're saying. I was at Blue Boat.
Yeah.
Hi there.
Hey.
So I was at Blue Boat for 4 years,
Yeah.
and I left 3 years ago to try to do exactly that. So I tried to spend 5 to 6 months a year away, doing my another passion, it's diving.
Nice.
And then come to the industry here and then work for 6 months. But as an artist, I mean, as you mentioned before, I always felt my confidence shake. I mean, 6 months away, when you come back, you have so many good people around, and people from Foundry is always changing a lot, which is very good, but it's always a lot of things to learn, and you know what I mean, new techniques and the new things. So how is the best way to deal with that? I mean, it's like every single year is going through
But the core
same-
stuff doesn't change, right? Like we've still got a green screen, and we've got to match shadows and reflections and midtones. That's like that stuff doesn't. And I think as a composite, like as we just set up here, you went back after 2 years, and that's a real testament to your personality and your eye that you'd acquired for all that time before. So it's kind of a pencil, right? Like it's like it's a tool.
Yeah,
it doesn't
I
mean
think
that
I
somebody
formulated
can't
wrong
see
the
what's
question.
going
It's
on.
not about sort of compositing wise, but I think it's more confidence to going back to the industry. You know what I mean? So like, okay, I'm going back there, and I know how to comp, and I know it's like the basic of comp doesn't change. But you know how the industry is at the moment. I mean, it's like especially now there is a massive migration of departments from London to other countries like India or China, or it's like cheaper countries in a way. So you always kind of feel.
There's loads of comp jobs at the moment because TV's come up to fill a lot of those positions, right? So like Netflix and now Amazon are competing, and they're doing a Lord of the Rings TV. I would argue there's not less jobs, comp jobs in London, because other stuff takes over. Like TV's now being taken so seriously that stuff's coming in to fill it. And I wouldn't worry. I mean, if you can be out positioned in 6 months, then you're not going to be out positioned. Like if you can be out positioned in 6 months, then you didn't learn as much as you can, if that makes sense. And so I wouldn't be worried about that. If you're a good comp, all your friends are in the industry. You can ask them who's hiring, what are the latest techniques.
I think that's a really good point. It is what we do is project based, and it does ebb and flow. It does come and go, and there's nothing we can do about. We have to manage that as a company. We have to manage that as best we can. But as long as that's the thing to stay aware of, is what shows are coming into London if you're based in London, and where the work is. And if you're struggling to find something, be aware that that's probably because there's a gap, and in a few months there'll be another show with 9,000 shots per day to do in 2 months.
Oh, please.
There's going to be loads of work to do.
This question is actually something. Sorry. This question is actually something I can attest to a little bit because it's been a while since I've actually been an artist in film, and sometimes when I'm talking to compers who do this day in day out, having the confidence to then for me it comes from doing personal projects. So while I may not be working in the industry anymore in that level, as long as I'm using the tool just to do small little funny videos, like if it's small things with your family or things like that, then that's what gives me confidence to feel like I still know what I'm doing.
And by the way, I would have that exact same. I think everyone has that.
Yeah.
That in this, like I would feel exactly
Just
the same way as you.
Everybody-
And it's easy
everybody
for me to
feels
say
like
this when I've never done it before, but I completely understand that. But it's not going to change that significantly in that period of time.
Because
And when there's a movie with loads of underwater photography,
But
I'd love to actually.
just remember that if you're looking at people up on the stage, and we don't necessarily know everything. Not everybody knows everything. Everybody has their own kind of confidence to keep up, and I have days when I'm not so confident. We all have to go through that. So you just have to work through it and know that everybody's not doing brilliantly. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's trying to do their best.
And that's an important point as well.
It's quite a good point.
I think that's what Suzanne mentioned earlier. I think artists in general tend to put too much pressure on themselves, and every year I felt the pressure. I was lucky to get a job straight away after 2 to 3 days I'm back, but I still feeling like did I lose a lot?
you've got to. I mean, I think you've got to know that about yourself, like how you feel about a situation, sort of understand that you are going to worry about it. And I think if you have that self-awareness, it helps to manage it, and that sort of context that there is.
You can make coping strategies to help you to deal with these things.
Yeah.
It's something you can do.
I'm afraid we're going to have to close off the questions now, but thank you so much for the question.
So thank you very much, everyone. Before we